election. The fact that people of all ages, apart from the elderly who were terrified into losing their pensions and craving lies they were told, everybody, every sector of Scottish society, not in the bag yet. And then that wise man who played such an instrumental part in the peace process in Northern Ireland looked me straight in the eye and he said, whatever happens, you've already won. And I think what we've seen over the last few days with the extravagant promises that have been made by Westminster and the 1.6 million people holding Westminster to account for those promises is going to change everything in Scotland forever.
Yeah.
I want to pay tribute to one man, because no one has done what Alex Salmond has done for our country.
That's the best introduction I've ever had. I mean, she didn't even get the sentence finished. And I got a standing ovation. You know, I don't know. I mean, I've won a few elections hereabouts, but I never got a reception like this when I won elections. Listen, some serious stuff. I think what Ailey says is absolutely right. When you think in terms of the sweep of things, as opposed to thinking just in the aftermath of a disappointment, when you think about the sweep of things, then the achievement of Thursday was extraordinary. Yeah. And it was achieved against the full might of the London establishment. The full, I said it during the campaign, they flung the kitchen sink, half the living room, most of the bedroom, every bit of furniture available was to be flung at the Scots. I mean, David Cameron, when his back was to the wall, when he realised Scotland was slipping away out of his power, he called the ultimate weapon. Was it Trident missiles? No, it was Asda. The slates when Asda was called in, and BP and the rest of the gang who were corralled into Downing Street and said, send a shiver up the spine of the Scots. I'll tell you what, they find it difficult to find a spine in Downing Street, never mind send a shiver. We should take comfort from the fact that they couldn't beat us politically, so they had to resort to the strong-arm tactics. And when you think about the demographics that I was talking about outside, everybody, well, the majority of people under 55 voted yes, and the majority of people, particularly those over 70, voted no. And you think about that, you see, it is quite easy to scare old people. It's not a difficult thing to do. It's a cheap, nasty thing to do. It's pretty easy. And where do people of that age group get their information? From the press. The BBC. I'll tell you something, there are some fine BBC reporters incidentally. Brian Taylor, for example. David Dimble is a class act, absolute class act. The boy Black, who revealed the memo on air, these are fine people. But I'll tell you this about the BBC, there's a huge difference between being a public sector broadcaster and a state broadcaster, which is what the BBC is. Think about the younger generation, who voted by majority yes, not just incidentally because they were always voting yes, These are people, by and large, who've moved towards Yes over these last few months. They get their information, by and large, from local radio, who are outstanding during this campaign in terms of giving a balanced opportunity to both sides. From the social media, which was dominated by the Yes campaign. I was asked at a meeting in Kilmarnock, a lad got up and said, you know, how can we possibly withstand this daily barrage from the Daily Express and the Daily Mail and the Daily D-Press and the Daily Snail? How can we possibly withstand that? So I just said, and I'll say it again today, how many people here are on social media? How many people are online? That's it. Well, there's your answer. The truth is out there. We just have to go and find it. And as the people of a younger age than myself, slightly younger age, were able to find that information, then they voted accordingly. So the days where you can rely on the BBC, whose reputation has been irreparably damaged in my view in Scotland, but you can rely on the newspapers to tell us what to do, these days are coming to an end. And the writing is on the wall for that sort of campaign. So we should take heart, enormous heart, from what actually happened in this ballot. From the 1.6 million people who put their trust in a better future for Scotland. And now we see how quickly politics turns. This is, well, I brought this along incidentally because fair's fair. There was one single newspaper in Scotland came out for Yes. One single newspaper, the Sunday Herald newspaper, came out for Yes. And I hope and believe that most, if not all people in this room and your friends are rewarding that paper and buying it and giving it support. Because there's no bad quote from me in the front page. The real guardians of progress are not the politicians at Westminster or even at Holyrood, but the energised activism of tens of thousands of people who I predict will refuse meekly to go back into the political shadows. I don't know where that came from on Friday, but I managed to say it. I think Lawyer probably wrote it for me. Anyway, that's exactly what I think. I think something has changed, and Scotland has changed utterly with it. Now, as I mentioned outside, 10,000 people have joined the SNP since Thursday. I know that a substantial number have joined the Greens as well. And if folk in here haven't joined the SNP, or the Greens, or Business for Scotland, or Women for Independence, or Radical Independence Group, or whatever is your favour, then do it now. Keep active, become involved, do it now. The second thing is caught in Cameron's trap. There's Alistair, looking like Alistair. And there's Gordon with ropes around him. I just want to make it clear these are not ropes that were tied by anyone in the Yes campaign. There's no egg over either Alistair or Gordon. The only eggs that are there are egg on their face. Because this pair acted as Tory frontmen throughout the campaign. They're in the trap, and there's nothing they can do about it. When David Cameron came sliding out of Downing Street, all smiles and relief, on Friday morning, he immediately says, of course, we recognise the promises made to Scotland. But this must go in tandem. And just in case we didn't understand what in tandem meant, he said, at the same time. That's changes that take place in England. Which means, of course, that they want to have English votes for English affairs. Now listen, I've got no problem with that. I was once asked by Jeremy Paxman, the great BBC interviewer, who once incidentally compared me to Robert Mugabe. Another example of the impartiality of the BBC. But never mind. Never mind that. I mean, I have to say, Paxman has the great virtue that he patronises everybody, regardless of who they are. So I once had a go at patronising him, and he was asking me about people's feelings about independence. And I said, look, Jeremy, I said down the line from Glasgow, I fully accept there are many, many people who doubt the nation's ability to govern itself. There are many people who have their misgivings, have their doubts. But I say the people of England are well capable of running their own country. I absolutely accept. I haven't actually got any problem with letting the people of England decide their own affairs. They are a great nation. They are an absolutely fantastic nation. They've got a cultural hinterland and heritage which is second to none. I think they've got some absolutely awful political leaders, but nonetheless, no doubt the good people of England will sort that out in good time, in due course. But the Labour Party have a huge problem with letting the people of England decide their own business. Because they think before they started reneging, I'm only surprised by the blatancy of it. I'm only surprised by the brass neck of it, but I'm not actually surprised. But as I was saying outside, the people who will be surprised are those 25% of the folk that voted no, according to the post-referendum analysis. The 25% who voted no because they thought that change was coming. Safe change, reasonable change, uncontroversial change, significant change, powerful change, and now are starting to look around and saying, were we tricked, were we fooled, were we gulled? Yes, you were. Anger doesn't come from us. We actually saw through this. Some of us were old enough, and I'm looking round, Johnny, you and I are old enough. Margaret's too young to remember. I would like to just emphasise that my mum in later life voted in the same direction as her husband and her son. But at that time she was quite impressed by Alec Douglas Hume. She wasn't really impressed by Kennedy. She wasn't impressed at all by Margaret Thatcher. And I don't know what you would think of David Cameron. But she quite liked Alec Douglas Hume, and therefore when Alec Douglas Hume said, listen, back in 1979, days before the referendum, he said, vote no, and we Conservatives will bring forward a more powerful and better Parliament. Some folk believe them. And so, therefore, in a few days before poll last week, when the vow was made in the Daily Record newspaper, some folk believed that as well. And the 25% of the no voters believe that. But as they are disappointed, not just by the reneging of the timetable, back to business as usual in Westminster, but also just an examination of the content, the total insipid, weak, meek nothingness of the proposals that they don't even agree on. Actually, conceptually, when you think about it, it's almost impossible. These three Westminster parties have failed to agree on nothing. I mean, you'd think a blank sheet of paper would be ideal to reach a consensus on. So, when people realise not just about the logjam, but also that the Labour proposals, for example, would involve us getting control at 20% of Scotland's revenue. 20%, 1/5. Marvellous. What about the other 4/5? The Labour proposals wouldn't, of course, countenance any suggestion that oil, which I can't understand this, get this through my head. The Westminster parties say this oil is a big cuss. It's all going away very soon. Why are they so anxious to hang on to it? Why aren't they saying, you take it, it's not worth anything really, you take it? No, no. Back in 1974, ladies and gentlemen, the Labour Party and the Liberals were saying 50% for Scotland. Now it's 0%. I've got a suggestion. Why don't we just reverse the whole thing? We collect all the taxes. And as long as our fellow citizens want to stay under Westminster, we'll send them some money to pay for the things that they're doing. instead of the other way around. So when people realise the insipid, the weak nature of the package, then of course the argument for independence, already carrying 1.6 million votes, will become irresistible. So people want to know something. How do we go from here? And listen, I know some people are upset about my announcement on Friday. I tell you, Mrs. Salmond was the upset. She was there. With all the journalists in Butte House looking very sonorous, Mrs. Salmond was up the back going, yippee! But that announcement is the right thing, because we have a generational change. That generational change is devastatingly clear from the figures. And the party and the parliament and the country has to react to that generational change. I wouldn't have done it if I wasn't absolutely convinced and know that the SNP leadership is in very safe hands. There are a number of people who would be fine leaders and fine First Ministers. I can think of one in particular, but of course I can't say it, because that wouldn't be right. You all know what I'm thinking, but nonetheless, I know that will be fine. And there's some things I'm going to be able to do that you can't do when you're First Minister. I'll be able to say what I really think about BP and the BBC. A number of ways that this can change. You know, I've said a number of times over the last 10, 15 years that I thought a referendum as we set it, which was my policy that I introduced, and I'm not ashamed of it incidentally, because this referendum galvanised people in a way that even surprised me. I was always confident if you put the matter to the touch, then people in Scotland would see the importance of it. And right through this campaign, it's been the most amazing thing. And I saw the people queuing in Dundee, queuing politely, patiently, to register their right to vote. Men and women, not youngsters, 30, 40, 50-year-old. I think some of the guys hadn't been on the register since the poll tax. I was talking to them, they were registering to vote yes, no question whatsoever. I was so encouraged by that, I was so touched by it, moved by it, that I mentioned at a meeting in Falkirk that next night. I said, look, I saw something in Dundee yesterday I thought I would never see in my entire political life. And somebody shouted out, a Tory. No, not a Tory. Men and women of a certain age queuing up to vote, re-entering the political process. I met a 61-year-old lady in Baroorie, coming out the polling station on Thursday night, voting for the first time in her life. I met a soldier, an ex-soldier, who hadn't voted for over 20 years. I met people right through the country, enabled, energised, empowered by the process of having a referendum, and I am a part of everything that I've seen and experienced over these last few weeks. It is the most amazing thing. And therefore, when I say to people, keep energised, whatever it may be, I mean, I'd love it if everybody joins the SNP, of course I would. But it's not the most important thing. Join something. Be part of something. Be part of Business for Scotland, the Radical Independence Group, the Green Party, whatever it is. Be part of the people on the side of the people who know we can take this nation forward. That has been the impressive thing. The grassroots campaign. The people mobilised to do something I thought I would never see. That is amazing. That is true. And we can bottle that energy and we can make it come to play in other areas of Scottish life. Then what achievement this nation is going to bring. Before the vote, it got totally clouded over in the vote, but we had fantastic jobs figures in Scotland. 45,000 more people in employment. Record female employment in Scotland. The fastest ever rise in women's employment in Scotland. Why is that significant? Do you not remember? Well, these guys told us. Osborne said 3 years ago, oh, he absolutely knew that having a referendum would dissuade investment in Scotland, He was telling, of course, he was doing his absolute best to convince people to invest anyway. He told us that as well. But he knew having a referendum would be a disaster. Yeah? Last 3 years we've had record inward investment figures in Scotland, and we now have the highest number of our fellow Scots employed at any time in our history. Why? Economic confidence and political confidence go together. Economic faith and political faith. There are just two aspects that we have to address. People of my generation and above, and this is a collective thing, we don't have the right to hold back the next generation. That is not our right. Our right is to enable the next generation to move forward. And people of my wealth and above in Scotland, people who are better off in Scotland, do not have the right to turn a blind eye to their fellow citizens. I studied economics at Scotland's oldest university. And I had a thing that I wanted to do more than anything else in terms of economics. I wanted to reclaim the founder of economics, Adam Smith, for the people. Stop them being abused and seduced by the London smart set. Whoever only read the Penguin edition didn't work if they read anything at all. Adam Smith founded economics, and he wrote that no nation, no country can be content or happy if a great part of their fellow citizens live in poverty and penury. That's true then, and it's true now. And people who are comfortably off, like myself and others in Scotland, and we know there are inspirational examples of it, I'm about to talk about one. We have to understand that we cannot be a nation unless we have concern for the people who are less fortunate and the people who need a helping hand out of poverty and penury. So when we look at the mobilisation of the young people, of people who are up against it in life, that is the spirit in which we have to go forward, and we have to make sure we engage our older Scots and our richer Scots with this national purpose. Because what a nation we can become if we manage to do that. And I want to symbolise that one event during this campaign. I was quite interested. There was a speech by Gordon Brown yesterday in Fife. And you know, he couldn't even remember the name of the shipyard. He said something of the shipyard in the Fife. It was called Ferguson's, actually. In Port Glasgow. He said, oh, it was strange that when they asked for help during the campaign, he said, only the Scottish Government came forward. That should have been the UK and the Scottish Government coming forward. No, Gordon, that's not the point. The point is the Scottish Government did come forward. That's the point. To have a Scottish Government that can do that, not just over that, but over other things as well. And the other point is this. Two shop stewards, John and Ali, in that shipyard in Ferguson. One a Rangers supporter, the other a Celtic supporter. Drive each other all the time. I'm sorry, there wasn't a Aberdeen supporter in there. Incidentally, I didn't find a Hearts supporter either. So, but John and Ali at each other all the time about football. But totally, absolutely united about saving their workplace. And with the help of the government and Jim McCall, the most successful job creator in recent history of Scotland, that shipyard can now look forward to a prosperous future. And for the first time, the workers in Ferguson's will have the information and the knowledge which will enable them to reach the levels of productivity that will make them an international success. And that can be done if we are people with a vision and aspiration. And these people, all of them, these two shop stewards, Jim McCall, they are worth 10, or maybe even 100 of any politician at Westminster or any supermarket or oil company boss who thinks he can tell this nation, the land of Adam Smith, that we can't run our own finances. Of course we can, and we can do it in a just and fair and proper way. What is to be done? Stay active, stay involved, get active, get involved. Persuade persuade our fellow citizens, as so many want to be persuaded, that the yes case is right. Secondly, political opportunities are on the way. As the Westminster logjam continues, as the disillusionment of the No campaign continues, believe me, the political opportunities are on the way. There's a general election next year. People have to go to the ballot box. If a half of the spirit distilled last week employs itself in that general election, these people, these MPs, will be wiped from the face of Scottish politics. And with them, our own Parliament, under its new leadership, which I think will be exceptional. Like the Parliament, it is the inquest of the country, it is the voice of the nation, it's the thing that makes this different from way back in '79. Because after Alec Douglas-Hugh made his promise, of course, we didn't get the Parliament. We got 18 years of Tory government and we got 10 years of Margaret Thatcher decimating the industrial base of Scotland. That's what we got. We got the poll tax and the rest of it. But this time we have a Parliament. A Parliament that can increase its powers. Not gradually, I think, but rapidly. Until it becomes independent in all but name. And when it's independent in all but name, you know what the Parliaments do? They declare independence. That's what they do. So, the route ahead, I think, is clear and certain. I don't know the time scale. But I don't think it's going to be a long one. Did I get my bus pass at 6? Right, okay. Well, okay, I might have the bus pass. Okay, I accept that. I'm 60-year-old in Hogmanay. You're all looking there and saying, how does it look like that? You are sitting there all thinking that, aren't you? So I might have the bus pass, I admit that, but I won't be in my dotage. I know that this country is on the way to independence. I know because the centre of gravity has shifted. And once that happens, there is no stopping a country. I can't tell you exactly the time scale. I can only tell you the destination. And I predict absolutely certain that this time scale, that length of time, it won't be long. So what do? Keep involved, stay involved. Take the political opportunities as they come. As the unionist forces fight among themselves and fall apart, and pick them off next year. Back the Parliament, back the extra powers. We shall get to independence. And when we do, then the celebration, the enthusiasm, won't be a 24-hour one. I'm trying to think. Stuart Pratt, where are you? Are you buying in the Independence Party, Stuart? What did you say on Thursday, Stuart?
I'm still for self-tonight, so...
There you go. Stuart Pratt with that canniness of which stupid Sligo in the northeast of Scotland is famous, has kept the booze. Which we did not buy from Asda. Carefully, that Tesco and other wonderful supermarkets who refuse to be bullied by the Prime Minister. It's been carefully kept by Stuart Pratt. The Stuart will never fling anything away. He knows the date on every bottle, which it's safe to consume. So I think we all know for a certainty, an absolute certainty, that we can be definite, because Stuart has never flung away a bottle or any money in his life. But the time scale for this nation becoming independent will be the nearest sell-by date in the So keep the faith. Let's get there. And let us do this very, very soon. Thank you very much.